Hey, so I just got back from the theater actually from seeing the movie Reminiscence. This is the second movie that I've seen in a row where I was alone completely in the theater. The last movie I saw in the theater was The Night House. So, not only was The Night House the first movie I've seen in the theater alone, but that has made this, well, the second time in a row as well as the first time. So, this has been an interesting experience. The pandemic, I guess. Um, so I guess I should start this review by going back to what you should know about Lisa Joy, my experience with her. Uh, I've only seen the first season of Westworld, and my experience has been mixed with that. Uh, I know everyone says that the first season's the best, it's a masterpiece, and that the show only starts to go downhill with season two, and people aren't the fondest of seasons 2 and 3 of that show. My experience has been that the show actually starts to go down partway through season 1. The first few episodes of the show are good, but by the end of the first season, the plot already gets so tangled up in itself that it starts contradicting itself with its plot twists in a way that it becomes laughable by not only how predictable the plot twists are, but how little they make sense by how they contradict one another. The show is still very entertaining and it has a lot of like spectacle to enjoy, but it's just like shallow entertainment value. So when I heard that this movie was not very well received and that it was bombing at the box office and everything, I was like typical Lisa Joy, but I was still wanting to watch it anyways because I thought the trailer looked good and I was seeing a lot of things that I liked, even if they were very familiar things that I was ripping off, like Blade Runner 2049, Inception, just to name a few things. There's several others that was ripping off, like Minority Report. Uh, I had a long list of them. Anyways, so what did I think about the movie? It's a mixed bag. There's a lot of good things and a lot of bad things. I basically had the same review of this movie as, weirdly enough, Estarco, which I know is another movie that people weren't fond of, but I actually had a more pleasant experience with that than I was expecting as well. And what's common about these two movies is that there's an act that is good for the most part. There's an act that's absolutely terrible. And then there's an act that's absolutely amazing in the movie. And while they're in a different order for both movies, in my opinion, for this movie, which is the only one I'm going to talk about for right now, Reminiscence, the first act is the one that's decent. Uh, it isn't like good, but it's like passable for sure. It sells you into the world. The world is very unique. It doesn't go into a lot of detail about how the world was made, but it's different from like a lot of the stuff that you usually see. It has a lot of quirks to it. It kind of feels a little video gamey, like BioShock or Fallout. Uh, with its like unique currencies, with it being like partially underwater. But then it also feeds into like the Inception limbo sort of stuff. There were direct shots that were direct rip-offs of those exact movies, and then it just captures that overall feel. And there's like the Blade Runner like narration from like the theatrical cut of the first Blade Runner, and then there's like the exact shot from 2049 of someone going through a wall. There's stuff like that. Anyways, in the first act, it's like a decent setup, but there's a scene in between the first two acts that's probably the worst of the entire movie. It's this like brawl in a bar. I guess I should go through all the negatives first so you know what I'm talking about. The middle act is the worst part of the movie, for sure. And it's not even necessarily the entire middle act. There's just a couple of brief occurrences that really take you out of the movie because it's really bad. And most of them are like in the middle act of the movie. Uh, so what I was talking about is there's a bar sequence where the wire work is like way too over the top. It's like an anime or something. People are getting flung all over the place from either not getting shot at all or getting shot. And it's so ridiculous and like unrealistic and everything that was literally laughable. And the whole scene is just like really bad. Uh, the other complaints I had was there is a lot of people complained about how bland the acting was in the movie. I didn't think it was very bland, mostly because what the vibe that they were going for was like this gritty neo-noir thing. So everyone is talking very serious. So that's a thing. But serious isn't like bland or tone deaf or flat. And I really can't complain about Hugh Jackman in this movie because he's one of the brightest things about this movie. You can't really call him bad or throwing it in any movie, but here especially, he really does a good job at saving the movie. He's never like boring to watch on screen. He's always like giving it his all throughout the entire film. And I never tuned out because of him. And, when it's copycatting a lot of like movies I'm really into, it's kind of hard to get tuned out of that, even though that's a very cheap thing to be interested in. Uh, so the movie obviously is not going to be a 10 out of 10. I can't say that. There was one performance though, I'll give you that, where for a moment I was really taken out of it. It was a scene where he was talking to his dog and he was not talking normally. I believe there was one other scene where I got taken out of the movie, but I don't quite remember what it was right now. What saved the movie for me though was the third act was phenomenal. The ending really saved the movie. It goes dark for PG-13, and it is a movie that desperately wants to be R, which is weird because Westworld was a very hard R like TV show. I'd even argue that the movie is hard R, even though it's rated PG. Um, so the movie goes dark. It has a lot of really cool, interesting, unique ideas that it explores in this third act, and it does definitely save the movie. So when I was originally going to give the movie a 6 out of 10 before the third act made me go, okay, well I should probably give it a 7 out of 10 now. And the 7 out of 10 isn't a glowing review, but it's not a negative review either. It's just kind of in the middle for me. It's like if you have HBO Max, I would recommend checking it out, but I wouldn't like seek out the movie and like pay a ton of money to watch it. But I'm glad I was at least able to support it since it bombed so bad. Yeah, there were things that I definitely liked about the movie, but there were things I definitely didn't like about the movie. It's very much just a mixed bag, which I think I said. Some of the performances were good, some of the performances were bad. Some of the story beats were good, some of the story beats were bad. The writing, oh, that was it. The writing was really bad in this one spot where it was clearly trying to foreshadow the ending of the movie, which I even said when the scene was happening the first time. Since we were empty in since the theater was empty, I whispered to my brother, who did give the movie a 6 out of 10. I told him that this scene is gonna foreshadow the end of the movie. Just you wait, because it was so tone deaf, and the scene was spoken like it was spoken by aliens, because that's how it was written. It was written like it was written for aliens, because it was not how people talk at all. And the character was saying like something about stories being sad but they have happy endings, and then happy stories being with sad endings, but it's happy if you cut it off in the middle or something like that. And it's like kind of confusing quote, but you get that this is where the movie's gonna end when you get to the end of the film. It's like way too obvious. Lisa Joy is just the most predictable writer director. She's not like a very good writer director. I appreciate her trying to do the Nolanisms, but she's not good at it. I'm sorry. I keep wanting to give her another chance because I like the concepts of what she's doing. And not even necessarily the concepts, just and not the execution either. It's like there's this shallow appeal to it, but there's nothing underneath the surface of what she's doing, if that makes sense. Like the visuals are nice. It stimulates in like a very guilty pleasure type of way, but it doesn't go much further than that. There isn't like anything going on underneath the surface. Also, the movie literally rips off an entire line from Vanilla Sky. The sweet just isn't as sweet without the sour. That's literally from Vanilla Sky. That's like the whole moral of the movie. They literally like the movie literally rips off the entirety of Vanilla Sky. I just have to say that. But yeah, I give the movie like 7 out of 10. It's like okay. Uh, it was absolutely amazing, the ending, how much that went to redeeming the movie, because like I was so engaged throughout the third act, and I was never like bored or disinterested or disengaged, but the middle act had a lot of scenes of people talking to one another and kind of just like deepening their characters and like stuff like that. And it was, I could get why someone would tune out during then, because it didn't feel like the story was advancing much and there was no action. The action wasn't completely bad. It was just that bar scene was really bad. There were a couple of shots that went on for a while where the action's going on and it didn't cut, so that was good. But a lot of the action was like cut and then cut and then cut, with the characters' backs towards the camera, so you can't even see if it's them doing it or anything like that. So some of the action was kind of annoying. I think that's about all I want to say about the movie. There were a couple of surprises that caught me off guard that I liked about the movie. I really liked the structuring of the movie. That was the one thing that caught me off guard that I really liked about it. Um, yeah, just stronger writing and directing, I think, would have done a lot. But Hugh Jackman and the third act of the movie definitely saved it. The middle act and like those three disruptions of negativity really brought the movie down a lot. But other than that, like, it was a good movie. I would watch it again anyways for the positive stuff, even though the negative stuff brought it down. Plus, it being like ripping off all this other stuff is a little annoying too. But yeah, that's what I thought. I'm curious what you guys thought of the movie too, because I know it got very mixed responses. So yeah.